In the shadow of war, over 13 million Syrian refugees have been forced to flee their homes. Parents and children and entire families escaping unimaginable hardship. Refugees seek safety in camps, cities, and foreign lands. But the need is immense, and their efforts rely on global support. Together, through donation and compassion, we can help restore dignity and rebuild lives. Syrian refugees are not just static, they are survivors and they deserve a future. Today, the topic of discussion is Syrian refugees and the role of the international organizations. You are watching Think Poll with Waqas Abdullah.
Hi everyone, I'm Waqas Abdullah and you're watching Think Poll. Today the agenda of our Zoom discussion is the Syrian refugees crisis. We are especially focused on the Syrian refugees crisis. We all are the witnesses of the world from the many years. The people are being refugees since many years. Whether they are coming from Afghanistan to the Pakistan, after the political turmoil in the Syria, they are coming to the Turkey, and from Burma to the Bangladesh. There are a lot of the millions of the people from many years who are being refugees and living with the status of the refugees in a different countries. So today the agenda of our discussion is to talk about and shed some light on the refugees' present condition and the role of the international organization, how the international organizations are working, how the host countries where the millions of the refugees are being living, how the host countries are being treated them. So today we have a great panel right now who are been working on these issues. We have Amna Asif from Turkey, who have been working on the refugees of the Syrian refugees especially. Thank you very much, Amna, for joining us.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Joining us, Arif Rahman from Indonesia. Thank you very much, Arif, for joining us.
Thank you, guys, for inviting me.
Thank you, Mikhail Mirza, for joining us, GCU Lahore.
Thank you, sir. It's an honor to be here.
And once again, Christian for joining us for Germany. Thank you very much, Christian, once again for joining us.
Glad to be here with you, everyone. Hi.
Thank you. So, Amna, I would like to start with you. So, you are been currently living in Turkey. You are visiting many times to the Syrian refugees places. Can you give an opinion how many Syrian refugees are being living in Turkey right now, and are in what conditions they are been living in the Turkey?
Okay, so first of all, thank you, Waqas, for bringing up this particular topic, the refugee crisis, because I believe this is one of the major pressing global challenge nowadays. Because today the world has been facing so many different refugee crises. For example, Syrian refugees, Afghan refugees, we have Palestinian refugees, Ukrainian refugees, and there are so many examples. But if we specifically talk about the Syrian refugee crisis, so we all know that this is one of the major displacement crises of the world. Because since the onset of civil war in Syria, millions of people have been forced to move out of their country, and approximately it's a total number of 13 million plus people. So this is quite a huge number. Biggest host country for Syrian refugees, because there are approximately 3.6 million plus refugees who have registered refugees who have been living in Turkey. Even though Turkish government, I believe that it's only good for a short-term relief, and they don't have any long-term, they don't have any guarantee of long-term sustainable life in Turkey. This is because of the fact that the Syrian people, they couldn't properly integrate into the local system, and they couldn't assimilate with the Turkish people, because they are two different communities. They're culturally different, they have linguistic gaps, and if when I talk to my Turkish friends that what they think about Syrian people, so they are of the view that for so long they have been catering Syrian people, but they were not their responsibility. So since it's been so many years now, so now they believe that the Syrian people have occupied their land and they have been utilizing their resources. So they believe that they have been exploiting their rights. Because of this reason, they have their resentments, they have developed xenophobic sentiments against the Syrian people, and the intercommunal tensions between these the local population in Syrian people have been increasing day by day, and they really want the Syrian people to move out of their country. And when I go to Syrian people, when I visit their places, I can see that they have been facing social exclusion. They feel themselves to be discriminated because they don't have any access to local job market. They're struggling with the informal employment. So they have developed their own little community where they only interact with each other. So it's like that they have been living in here. So yeah.
Okay. Okay. So Mikhail, can you listen? The Asif, he has been highlighting about the psychological factor as well. The refugees from one country to another country, when they are migrating from one country to another, they leave their homes. Their dreams are being crumbled. They are also be suffering from the psychological factor. And when they come to another country, they believe that they're exploiting their rights. So what's your opinion on that, about the host country? Why these things will be happen into this country and the mindset of the people? Is there any media narrative have been influenced these people to think about like this?
Thank you so much, sir, for the wonderful question. Adding that to Amna's opinion, I feel like firstly we need to understand some very fundamental factors. Number one factor, that why these people are being displaced, especially in Syria. Two major causes of that. Number one is the economic instability, because we don't feel like the people have sufficient number of jobs to sustain their livelihood, as well as to feed their families and children. That forces them to leave their homes and lands and every territories that have been living for centuries, as you mentioned. Secondly, I feel like the major causes is the political instability and wars, especially going in the Syrian region, because we have seen a constant conflict between Bashar al-Assad government as well as the Syrian Opposition Council, which lead to war, destruction, and ultimately human rights violation in that particular region. So when these people having a psychological impact leave their homes and families for the survival of the children and the future generations, they migrate into other countries. Now, what is the problem with that? We have three major problems with that. Number one is the strict asylum policies for these countries. We feel like countries like Egypt and Turkey, especially, who countries who give asylum to people on the basis of humanitarian grounds, on the basis of other cultural grounds, and in the case of humanity as well. But we feel like when coming towards the countries like UK or the European countries itself, who majorly largely have very strict regulation policies with respect to people entering into them, because they have like the people, oh, these people might be the people of the terrorist organizations, or these people might be a threat to our country's sovereignty. So we feel like these countries need to relax their asylum policy with respect to these individuals, because these individuals, these countries give asylum to them only on the basis of they have a very severe threat to their identity in terms of their political, social, and narrative views as per their foreign policy initiatives. And number secondly, they give asylum on the basis if they have married to any individual in this particular countries, which we feel like should not be the case. And coming towards, as Amina mentioned, there is a job scarcity and people and lack of acceptance among people of the people of other nation who have already psychologically, physically, and emotionally suffered a lot. So we need to take three major initiatives with respect to it. Number one initiative should be the social and political awareness, which should be launched by the government using the media and social media, that these people are our brothers and sisters, these people are Muslims, these people are not intentionally, even not Muslims, these people are humans. And they should be treated equally with respect, with dignity as well. Secondly, government should launch I would say, a quota scheme in a way that a special regulation should be formed in the companies, especially the government sector companies, that, oh, 2 to 3% of the job market that will be open with the government subsidy should be open to the refugee people, especially those countries which cater a lot of refugees. That includes Turkey, that includes Egypt, especially for the case of Palestine, for the people of Gaza. So in this very particular sector, the job scarcity market would not be the case. If people have certain level of seats, let's say 5 seats in a particular company, in a governmental company, we cannot enforce private companies, government companies to cater these people, then I believe the job displacement would not be the bigger case. Thirdly, we feel like we need to introduce initiatives like collaboration initiatives, like globalization initiatives. The world has become a global village, so it should not be discriminated. People should not be discriminated on the basis of their religion or the culture or the caste or the basis of their identity. As you mentioned about the xenophobic phenomena, which is to basically hate a particular country on the basis of their identity. We feel like in order to cater that initiative, we need to initiate festivals, different initiatives on the global scale, so the people could harmonize on these festivals, people could meet each other, people could greet each other, and ultimately make space for them. So that we cannot solve the refugee crisis on the mass scale happening on the country level, but we can do as individuals, as humans, is to help out these people, is to consider them humans, and ultimately government as a government level should make legislative policies so that people could be catered more easily. They should be given proper healthcare facilities, and they should be given jobs, and especially in the government sector. Thank you.
Okay. So, Christian, Mikhail highlighted 2 points. And the chunk of their talk about the unification. He mostly talk about the unification among the peoples, about the host countries, and the social awareness campaign and the quota system. What do you think about in the Turkey, the Syrian refugees? Is it possible that some structure of the government and the policies have been introduced by the government of the Turkey regarding the Syrian refugees?
Well, to be honest, this is a very, very difficult topic. And honestly, in today's framework of our, let's say, geopolitical, political, economic systems with a very strictly national focus, let's put it this way, we don't really have a solution for this. Yeah. It's easy to say that the governments should do this and that. Of course, they should do, yeah? They should provide for the people. They should give them the best of healthcare, education, help the people integrate, yeah? And here with integration, there's a huge barrier in terms of language, culture, not even diving into religion, but just culturally, yeah? I was very interested now in what Amina said, that the Turkish people see the Syrian people different, although they're both Muslim, in the vast majority, and still neighboring countries. So let's say the cultural gap should not be that big, let's say, compared to Germany and Syria, where there is a big cultural gap. I think everyone can understand this. But see, even in neighboring countries, we have such issues. Yeah. And yeah, the governments should do this and that. But if I think of the Turkish government or the Egypt government, yeah, which we discussed about, they have a lot of issues. I mean, the people in Egypt and Turkey, they themselves are not well provided, having good healthcare, having social security. Yeah, Turkey is experiencing a very difficult situation with the economy, with high inflation. I mean, the inflation in Turkey is double digit. It's really increasing year by year. So the government totally lost control over the economy. I've been to Egypt myself, and let's say from a European perspective, it is very, very struggling. Yeah, I mean, a lot of people there themselves don't have jobs, and they're looking desperately to have a job, to have a source of income, to feed their family. And then they see the refugees coming there. Well, sometimes even with better skill, sometimes with lower skill, yeah, but still they see them as competitors in their home market. And as Amina said, well, they compete on the same resources, basically. Yeah, let's say jobs, natural resources, and everything that's available in terms of resources. Yeah. And Waqas in the very beginning, you said, how do the host countries deal with refugees? Are they supported or not? Well, even from a European perspective, only the bordering countries, yeah, from Europe, like Greece, Italy, yeah, they take the refugees out of humanitarian reasons, yeah, but they're overflooded. They don't know what to do with them, and the other countries that are not neighboring, they're not really willing to take them because they will cause economic issues. Yeah, so we really need a global approach. We really need a global approach. Whose responsibility is it? As Amina said, the Turkish people, they don't see themselves responsible. Well, they didn't cause the war in Syria. Yeah, at least they, the people, I'm not talking about politics, the people, they did not cause the war. They don't want them to have war, but they want to have a job. It's not that they don't want their Syrians to have a job, but they want to have a job themselves first and have a good life themselves first, and then to cater for the other people, right? This is actually very basic from the understanding, and this shows that today's system is a total failure. Really, it's a total failure. We need a globally coordinated action plan, how to deal with refugees, to distribute the resources that we have. Yeah, among all people, yeah, from all countries, from Canada and the US to Australia to Japan to South America, all across the world, yeah, because they're people, just as Mikhail said. Yeah, it's not that they're Muslims or they're Syrian. They're human beings. They're people. They're just like us. We have to help them. They're brothers and sisters. They require our help. If, let's say, we're in a situation of no war, yeah, compared to a situation of war, we have to provide help. Yeah, and unfortunately, we the, let's say, average citizens, it's very frustrating for us. Actually, yeah, I've seen the example of Syrian refugees in Germany, and mind that Germany took 1 million Syrian refugees. It was #1 country in terms of absolute numbers. Sweden took the most Syrian refugees in terms of relative numbers. So compared to their local population, which is like, I think, 10 million, they took, I think, 300,000 or 500,000 Syrian refugees, which is a lot, which is really a lot. And many people think, and even the refugees, oh, this rich countries, everything here is fantastic. You know, it's floods of milk and honey everywhere. No, it's not like that. The people there still have their issues, still have to struggle. Yes, I mean, it's much more organized and things are running, but you have to imagine that no country as such has the housing space or the job market to accommodate all of a sudden, or let's say in a short period of time, an influx of, well, some millions of people, yeah, to take over them. You simply don't have the structures. Imagine just when you go to the doctor, you already have queues. I mean, Germany has a huge demographic issue, and you don't get to the doctor. Yeah, you need 3 months for an appointment. Then you get some millions of people on top. Then you have to wait 6 months to go to the doctor because the number of doctors did not increase overnight by 20%, right? So the entire social system is strained. The country is strained. Yeah, and countries cannot cope by that on their own. We really need a totally different approach to this. We, as humans, as countries, we have to unite. Politically, economically. As humans, we have to unite and start cooperating, not say, oh, they're from there, this is mine, this is yours. We all people here are just renting basically what we have. This planet does not belong to us, like it really belongs to us. Yeah, we're here like for a short period of time, yeah, and we have to make the best use of what we have. And first of all, show love and humanity to all other people. And for that, we have a project such as the Creative Society that tries to unite all people. And it's not only talking about it, it's really providing viable solutions on how we can have a unified economy, a totally different political system where everything is made by the people and for the people, which means the people have to take responsibility. Stop finger pointing and shifting. The government should do it. They should do it. No, it has to start with ourselves. We should do what we can. We should be responsible citizens. Yeah. And then on a global framework, have this, multiplied responsibility with everyone within us.
Okay. So you are highlighting briefly essential points, Christians. Thank you very much for an essential for highlighting the essential point. Arif Rahman, I will come to you. I'm asked to raise the point of the psychological impact on the Syrian refugees. And the Mikhail Mirza also highlight the point of the unification, and the Christian also highlight the point of the unification among the peoples, not among the nations. And basically, it's about the unification of the people. Then we'll come on the global perspective. What's your take on that? The refugees, with especially focus on the Syrian refugees. What's actually going on to the Syrian refugees, not only specific in the Syria, but all over the countries that who are being living, the Syrian refugees.
My pleasure. I really appreciate this discussion and the perspective delivered by these incredible people. Thank you so much. And I would like to share my thought on this issue. First, the plight of Syrian refugees serves a stark reminder of the urgent need for a more robust and effectively implemented international legal framework to protect the rights and dignity of displaced persons. The protracted nature of this crisis, characterized by prolonged displacement, limited access to basic needs, and the enduring trauma experienced by millions, underscores the limitations of existing international humanitarian and refugees law. While this legal framework provides a crucial foundation for refugee protection, their effectiveness is often hampered by inadequate implementation, insufficient funding, and political will. The situation of Syrian refugees in Turkey is a complex and multifaceted humanitarian challenge. Turkey hosts the largest refugee population globally, with millions of Syrians having fled to ongoing conflict. This has undoubtedly placed a significant burden on Turkey's social and economic system. While neighboring country has made commendable efforts to provide shelters, education, and healthcare to many refugees, challenges remain. There are the challenges. First, we need to integrate a large refugee population into a health society can be a complex. Issues like language barriers, cultural differences, and competition for resources can sometimes lead the tensions. Also, the economic impact. The influx of refugees has put pressures on neighboring country labor market and social services, and the security concern. The presence of large refugee population can also pose security challenges. Although it's important to note that the vast majority of refugees are peacefully and law-abiding. It is crucial to acknowledge the immense generosity and resilience of the people in hosting such a large refugees populations. However, it's also important to recognize the challenges faced by both refugees and host communities. Okay.
Okay, thank you so much.
So we
I'm
need the
asking- Okay.
all right.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay.
I got to your point. I'm Nasif. I will come to you. You visited the camp of the Syrian refugees in Turkey. What do you feel it there? Is the language barrier and all of the things affected the psychologically to these people? And what Syrian refugees are being feeling right now in the Turkey right now?
Okay, so Waqas, as I mentioned earlier, that Syrian people, they feel themselves alienated and they feel themselves to be discriminated because, first of all, I believe that if any person becomes a refugee, his life can never be the same again. Because instead of having all the rights, they have all the rights in their country, but then there is something that happened because of which they have to move out of their country. So now, since they have become a refugee, except the right of living, all other rights become seized, like the political right, the right of the economic policy right, the social policy life of the host country. They don't have any say in those policies. So I believe that they do feel themselves psychologically inferior from them. So they have been facing so many psychological issues. They have faced trauma because they have seen so many devastating situations in their country. They got separated from their families. They have to leave all their things, so of course they feel psychologically devastating. But also, in the new country, if you have language issues, you cannot properly integrate into their system, and you cannot properly connect. Like, for example, the children who have been living in Turkey right now, the Syrian children, they don't know the language, so they don't know how to survive. So that's how they have been facing psychological problems.
Okay, thank you. Mikhail, Amna highlighted another concern regarding the Syrian refugees, the rights of war and rights of other things. So you are the chair of the different MUN committees, and you are highlighting and share the different agendas related to the rights of the peoples and the political rights and other things. So when I come to the international organization like IMO, UNHCR, and the two big powers like America and Russia and other superpowers. So they have any concerns and agenda specific to the rights of the refugees or not? We are not talking about the loopholes right now. It's come to an end, but we are talking about their agendas, their concern about the refugees. What are your opinions on that?
Thank you so much, sir. I believe my fellows have highlighted significant number of issues. I would like to move towards some suggestions for solutions, including the rules and agendas of different countries as well. Firstly, important point highlighted by the question was that the country should not be burdenized with taking more and more refugees, because that is not significantly important to the economies, because people in Turkey or people in Egypt or other countries who are taking refugees are not still very stable countries. So a probable solution that has been continuously in discussion, especially in the committees where I have spoken or I have chaired, is lies itself in the European Convention of Refugees 1951, which states the formation of a third countries. Now, what are these third countries? These countries look like the place. For example, as my fellows mentioned, that the countries are usually that take refugees are the countries that are neighboring countries. So instead of taking refugees from the neighboring countries, these countries should have the policy to direct those individuals, like for example, Turkey or Egypt, who are taking a lot of refugees. They should direct those individuals to a third safer country in which the lives of these individuals will be safe. They will be given different rights, social, economic, political rights, and these individuals could have a living to strive in those particular countries. No country should take the burden of its on itself to take all of the refugees in this on particular state respectively. A major issue regarded that what stances, as you mentioned in your question, what is the stance of international organizations and what does international organizations took stance in it. So I would like to highlight two major important points. Number one, the role of NGOs, international NGOs. When we talk about International Committee on Red Cross, or when you talk about doctor scarcity, we have Doctors Without Borders. Now, what these two entities look like? ICRC, International Committee on Red Cross, is an international organization, NGO, which works collaboratively with other organizations such as Oxfam. Now, what they will do is they will provide humanitarian assistance. Now, these organizations are funded by individuals as well as wealthy individuals, companies, as well as by different states. Now, what they will do, they will collaborate with different UN-based organizations such as UNHRC, United Nations Human Rights Council, which is working in Syria. We have UNRWA mission of UN, which is working in Palestine. Now, they will provide humanitarian assistance and humanitarian aid, especially to the refugees, with respect to special provisions to women who are facing maternal mortality issues or different pregnancy issues, and especially with regards to the children, as per the CRC convention and CEDAW convention, respectively. Now, apart from these organizations like Doctors Without Borders and ICRC, we should also focus on a one important issue which was highlighted by Amana, which was that these people face discrimination with respect to their individuals, with respect to their identity. So, in my opinion, a very humble cause, a very humble solution with respect to this opinion is to integration with different cultures. Like, as I mentioned earlier in my in my previous recommendation, that today is the world of globalization. We know that people might face language problems, cultural problems, and people are not willing to accept other individuals who are not part of their culture, not part of language, as their own people. The government at state level should initiate such programs where the people should amalgamate with each other. Like, people should formulation in a way that people should have the identity to accept. If an individual, like for me, living in Syria, living in Turkey especially, do not feel threatened that, oh, this particular Syrian or this particular individual who has a refugee will not take away my job, my identity, or will not invade my culture, that there is a larger probability that I will give acceptance to that individual. So that acceptance at larger scales simply will come from different amalgamation programs. Now, what these amalgamation programs look like? This can be in the form of socio-political, cultural awareness. Like, we can introduce festivals in which, in a country, we have different festivals. For example, a region can have festivals playing, let's say, different festivals. I remember some festivals of Turkey where we have like a wedding concept, a different wedding concept. You can invite people of the refugees to see the Turkish culture. And similarly, the people of Turkey can go into the weddings and festivals of the Syrian people. So when you explore different cultures, you try to amalgamate, you try to fit in, you ultimately can translate these things into your cultural identity. And even if you don't become a singular homogeneous nation, yet you strive to exist coexistently. That is the peaceful coexistence that we need. And as an international level, as Christian mentioned, we need to take initiatives by the countries on international level as well, for which we need to make certain conventions, as we have countries are unified on the Paris Agreement on climate change about the sustainable development on the global warming, and similarly as the country unified to formation of a United Nation itself. We believe like countries should unify on this principle as well, and we need to reduce the wars, and we need to ensure the equitable distribution of refugees with countries with respect to their economies. Governments of the country should make initiatives, and people should take initiatives on the personal level so that refugees can be accepted,
Okay.
and the new country not become a home ground to them as well.
Okay,
Thank you.
Christian, we got 2 points. If the countries feel that the refugees are being burdened on them, so why they open their borders for the refugees? Why? Because if you feel that the peoples are being sailed from one country to another country, they feel that we do not have enough sources, we do not have enough jobs, we don't have enough space for them. They consider their burden. What they are facing, the psychological factor from their country, and always when they sail from one country to other, where they've been a hosted country, they also face the same situation. So why the countries are being open their borders for them? This is a political stunt.
Here, you talk about countries, but we also have to talk about people. We all people have an innate need of helping someone and of providing help when we see someone in need. And we don't think of their race, religion, color whatsoever. We see a human being in need, lying on the street, beaten up, needing medical assistance urgently. We just go there and help. We don't think. Yeah? And this is just our thoughts that then come later. Oh, he's like this and that. And we start labeling and finger pointing and something. Now we have this innate desire to help. And this is very important because this is the driving force behind countries opening their borders to help the people in need. Yeah, the people, as it was said now, they're traumatized, they're psychologically traumatized, they've seen devastating situations, lost family members, faced death, illness, many horrors. Yeah, those people are in need. They need assistance, they need safety, assistance, comfort as much as possible. Yeah, to provide, they need this. Yeah, and short term, this works very well, yeah, because the people are there and they want to provide need. The problems come in the mid and long term because the countries and the governments don't have appropriate strategies and don't know what to do, and they don't have the funding either. Yeah, and I have to say that the European countries are actually providing a very, very good example of how to deal with refugees. The suggestions of Mikalia of amalgamation in whichever form, festivals, cultural interactions, group schooling, children playing together, they're already happening in Europe. And actually Europe has also been evolving from the Syrian refugee crisis like almost 10 years ago to the Ukrainian refugee crisis 2 years ago. All those things are already happening. So Germany is really providing a wonderful example of cultural festivals of the refugee communities with the local people attending them, talking, exchanging, children going to kindergarten, going to school, being integrated in school. The children of the refugees are already learning German from the very first day that they are here. Even the papers from the government in communicating with the refugees are in 2 languages. They're in German and in Russian or Ukrainian for the Syrian for the Ukrainian refugees right now. I find this really wonderful, yeah, because the people, they don't know the language, then they get some official document, they're even under more psychological pressure what to do. No, it's already in their language. I find it really, really wonderful that you think about the other people. How will he understand your message? How will he or she deal with it? Yeah. So we're already having good examples on how to deal with certain aspects, not all of them. And yeah, the other countries should take over these examples as soon as possible here to avoid the problems. I think the root cause of all this is to stop having the conflicts and the wars. Yeah, if we deal with the refugees, we deal with let's say symptoms and problems, but we should go and address the root cause. Yeah, and it's good that we have international organizations that help, like the Red Cross, like the what they call in English, Médecins Sans Frontières, Doctors Without Borders. It's very good that we have them, and they're doing the job as they can. You should understand that many people there are volunteers. Yeah, and it's actually a great thing as a human to go to another country, to a situation of war and conflict where maybe your life is also at risk, to go and provide assistance to those people. Yeah, so they do what they can. They have also an unsecure funding. Sometimes maybe corporations give them a donations or they don't give them a donation. Then they also can provide or cannot provide the assistance to the refugees. Yeah, so they're also in a quite tricky position, and this is why we have to work to solve the root cause. Why are we having wars? Why are we still fighting for resources? Why can't we not find peaceful solutions? Why can't we not have true democracies? I mean, really true democracies where we, the people, have a say, not some dictators or some political parties or some external countries taking influence. Yeah. And what about our priorities? I analyze these issues also in the framework of the Creative Society project. We people globally, we spend more money on wars and on weapons than we spend on social security and on research. We spend more money. The most thing that we spend money on is weapons. So we spend most of our money to kill each other. Yeah. Not to provide assistance. And this is the root cause of the problem, yeah, that we have this political games and this wars where only very few people profit from them, really very, very few people. All the vast majority of people is in not a good condition or suffering because of this. Yeah, this is the issue that we have to address, and we have to be for peace. We have to do everything for peace, that even don't have, let's say, a refugee crisis because of a war.
Okay, I got your point. I'm Asif, you have been living in Turkey, yeah. You are a witness of the things which is going in Turkey with the Syrian refugees. Is there any specific policies or organization in a Turkey to support the refugees? Is there anything by the Turkish government? Another thing, is there any festivals which is mentioned by the Mikal and the Christian as well? Is there any festival where the both are the Syrian and the Turkish are going to join both of them? Is there some kind of the functions or something else will be happen or not?
Okay, so Waqas, if I, you know, you asked me two questions. If I answer the second one, till now I didn't see any festivals where the Turkish and Syrian peoples are together. As I said earlier, they have their own little, the Syrian people, they have their own little community and they interact with each other only. The Turkish people usually don't interact with them. They have different society, and Turkish people live their societies, their places. So it's like that. I didn't see any of the festival where the both communities are celebrating together. It's like that. And if I answer the first question, you asked me about what the Turkish government. So since the beginning, the Turkish government has been quite active. The Turkish president, His Excellency Recep Tayyip Erdogan, firstly had adopted the policy of open borders, so which allowed many to come without any restrictions. And he specifically referred to the Syrian refugees as his guests. So he provided them with all the immediate humanitarian aid. He established more than 20 refugee camps for them in the regions near the Syrian border, and he invested a lot in those camps. The Turkish health ministry, they provided them with free healthcare facilities. They deployed the movable healthcare units in the remote refugee settlements, and their education ministry provided them with free education. They developed the temporary education centers for the children of Syrian people. And also, with time, in 2014, they proposed the temporary action plan for them, under which they provided them with the legal status. I think Michael mentioned it, that in other countries, the Syrian refugees, they have been facing the diplomatic limbo for so long. But unlike in Turkey, the President Erdogan has provided them with the legal status through which they can travel freely to any other place, and they can have education and healthcare facilities just like the locals do. And also, the Turkish government has made an agreement with the European Union. They were getting financial aid from them and providing financial assistance to the refugees, and this helped a lot to manage this refugee crisis. So there have been so many things that the Turkish government did. And also, I would like to mention an important point, that despite of the economic recession in Turkey, despite of the the COVID scenario, and despite of the devastating situation because of earthquake, the Turkish government never neglected these Syrian people living in Turkey. Also, collaborated with international organizations. Like Meghal mentioned, that there are so many, UN agencies that have been working here, like UNHCR, UNDP, United Nations, Development Program, UNDP. Other than that, UNICEF, etc. So Turkish government has also collaborated with these organizations so that they can provide proper legal and physical protection to the refugees. Also, there is a program that regional refugee resistance plan. Turkey was a part of that plan. It was a collaborative effort by UNHCR and UNDP, through which they are facilitating the refugees. They are providing them with the immediate humanitarian aid and all the technical assistance they need. So the Turkish government has been collaborating with those international organizations, intergovernmental organizations, and also the local organizations of Turkey have been quite robust in all these activities, to transfer the refugees into the safe places, to providing them with all the immediate needs, and to help them with they provided them they provided them with all the opportunities to integrate with the Turkish people. But I believe the only issue is that they have they are left alone in this whole situation. The President Erdogan, he mentioned so many times at different occasions that there is a need of financial assistance from the European countries, from the major countries, and from international organizations, that there is a need of collaborative effort. But since they're not getting the they're not getting proper help from the outer world, so they are all alone in this effort, and that's why the Turkish people have resentment. So I think it's just like that. So
Okay,
yeah.
okay, I got your point. So I know
Yeah.
that you all have some other commitments, so that's why I will come on the last point of the Zoom session. I will start from you, Arif Rahman. What do you think about how we can make these efforts more effectively? What are the loopholes and how we can make some changes in international law, in the changes in some policies? What do you believe in that? What are the solutions and how we can make these efforts more effective?
Okay, thank you for the chance. From my perspective, strengthening international law and policies to better address the challenges of displacement requires a multi-phase approach. First, we need to ensure that existing international laws, such as the 1951 Refugees Conventions, are fully respected and effectively implemented by all states. This includes strengthening mechanism for accountability and ensuring access to legal way for refugees. Secondly, we need to address the root causes of displacement, including conflict, persecution, and climate change, through diplomatic efforts and by promoting sustainable development. And finally, we need to foster greater international cooperation and burden sharing, ensuring that all countries contribute fairly to the protection and assistance of refugees. By strengthening international law and policies, we can create a more just and equitable system for the protection of displaced persons worldwide. And about the Syrian refugee crisis has become deeply intertwined with global political issues. Some countries, especially those near Syria, have taken in many refugees, but others haven't helped much. This isn't fair, and it shows that countries aren't working together enough. Some people are also worried about safety, and some countries have become afraid of refugees, are also wrong. The way different countries feel about refugees is also causing problem. Some countries disagree on how to help refugees and how to keep their own countries safe. This makes it hard to find solutions that everyone agrees on. Finally, the countries are sometimes more interested in their own power than in helping refugees. This makes it harder to find solutions that are good for everyone. To solve these problems, countries need to work together better, help each other, and try to understand each other's concern. We need to find ways to help refugees safely and make sure everyone feels safe in their own countries. Addressing these complex political dimensions is crucial to finding a just and sustainable solution that ensures the protection and well-being of millions of displaced Syrians. International institutions like UNHCR play a pivotal role in safeguarding the rights and providing critical assistance to refugees worldwide. They offer protection, shelter, food, healthcare, and education to millions displaced by conflict and persecution. UNHCR, for example, has been instrumental in providing vital aid to Syrian refugees, including emergency relief, resettlement programs, and support for integration in host communities.
Okay, okay, thank you very much. Mikhail, Arif Rahman is talking about a lot of the things about the unification, policy measures, and more about the effective diplomacy among the states. So what's your opinion into it? What are the loopholes in the international organization and how we can make efforts more in an effective way?
My apologies, sir. There is a lot of noise in my background, but I'll just like to make it a very short. And just I would like to say that regarding this loophole, one of the major loopholes that we face regarding this topic is the lack of implementation, where we see a lot of policies making by the countries as well as by international organizations, but we do not see its proper implementations due to restrictional usage among people as well as not proper mechanisms for this implementation. But we feel like we need that on the legislative and policy initiatives. And secondly, as by all of my fellows mentioned about the regional cooperation as well as international cooperation, that is the very necessity factor that we need to implement so that we can have a better, more prosperous world where people don't have to be refugees and people who does become a refugees will get a new homeland in the other countries as well. Due to lack of shortage of time and a lot of noise, I will conclude my answer to this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. So, question, what's your opinion on that? What are the loopholes and how we can make more effective way for the refugees crisis? How we can We are, as Mikhail mentioned, that we make the policies, but the loophole it is for implementation. What's your take on that?
I was just thinking while the other speakers were dealing with this issue on my own, what is exactly what is missing, and it's commitment, real commitment. Yeah, we have some policy making and discussion and so on, but there's no implementation. So there indeed should be a sort of hard commitment. For instance, like each country from the world, maybe depending if they're rich or poor, yeah, provide 1 to 2% as an example now from their GDP to a global united fund for refugees. Yeah, that all countries chip in. They contribute money into this fund. Let's say a rich country like the United States gives 2%, a country like Bangladesh gives 0.5%. I think it's important that every country chips in, even minimally, because there's this responsibility to give. Not that some countries are somehow exempt or others are overburdened. It should be somehow in a fair distribution. But there should really be this commitment that we all put some money there. It's like insurance, yeah? We put some money there for bad days. Hopefully they don't come, but if they come, we have some money set aside. And we should have this global fund. But you see, this is the issue. We have the need of this global commitment, yeah? Not that some say, no, I don't want to be part of it. And we don't have today actually any mechanism to force a country like China, for instance, to be part of something if they don't want. And the only mechanism that still works today is from the people, where the people put pressure on the government and they say, no, we want this. We want it. Our government is doing this. Because if the government doesn't do this, it won't get elected. It doesn't represent us, and then we elect someone else. Yeah. Of course, in dictatorial countries, this is a bit more difficult. But in the vast majority of countries, we still have a sort of functioning democracy, more or less, but we still have democratic mechanisms. And then it's up to us, the people, to request this from politicians. Please do this for us. We are people. We want you to do this for us. We are sovereign at the end of the day. The sovereignty is with us, with all 8 billion people, not with the politicians. They're only managers. Yeah, country leaders are only managers at the end of the day. They're public servants, high-ranking public servants to serve who? The people, meaning us. Yeah.
Okay. So Asif, what's your opinion on that? How the Turkey make more effective efforts toward the Syrian refugees, and what are the loopholes? What's your opinion on that? What are the loopholes international organization in international?
Okay, so Waqas, my sensitive question is that in the given capacity, the international organizations do make efforts, but there are certain loopholes because of which they are unable to manage the crisis properly. And many of the loopholes are mentioned by my fellow members, but I would like to mention one point, that is the faulty composition of the veto power of the United Nations Security Council. Talking about the faulty composition of the veto power of United Nations Security Council, because at many occasions we have witnessed that these countries, they block the important what we can say the critical they block the critical resolutions, so which hinders the international organization to work for the refugee rights. So in many cases, if we specifically talk about the Syrian refugee crisis, many of the times the Russia has blocked the critical resolutions that aimed at providing refugees with the humanitarian aid that could pressurize the national government of Syria, and that could increase the support of the the international support. So because of this reason, I believe that the international organizations, these countries clip their wings. And like, for example, in international relations, we can see that these major countries are the driving forces. Even international organizations have their have a proper mandate, they have proper logistic team, they have proper workforce, but still they cannot do, because the driving forces behind these organizations are these countries. So we were talking about funding gaps also. So these are the countries who provide fund to to these organizations. So if their interests are at stake, they make the foreign policy, they make the decision on their foreign policy context. So because of their self-centered and their vested interest, they clip the wings of the international organization. So if we make, if these countries are are being made accountable, so then we can see the difference. And of course, there is a need of coordinated, unified response countries with all the support they need, and they should maximize their capacities to work for the refugee rights. So that's all I have to say. Thank
Okay, Abhigal, would you like to add something? I personally believe that last time that you have an noise in your background, that's why you minimize your answer. Would you like to mention anything right now?
Sir, I would like to just mention two extended points regarding my fellows. Firstly, they mentioned very specifically about Amina mentioned a very important highlight that these particular countries clip the international organization their particular wings for their own benefits and interests. So I feel like the most important factor lies, as Christian mentioned, lies upon in the democratic nations, the responsibility lies upon individuals, the people who ultimately vote for the governments, vote for the initiatives. So for in especially democratic regions, people should empower those governments, those individuals who are not just working to strive for their own country, for the people of their own interests, but for the people who are for individuals or political parties who have included refugees or the people part of it and their manifesto as well. So they won't be working just for their voters, the people who have political rights, but also working for those individuals who are part of refugees who don't have political rights but still they need the basic necessities of education, environment, healthcare facilities as well. So who are a part of this country, who are citizens of the country, should also take in measures so that they could elect democratic people, those democratic parties who not only work for their own citizens, both their own voters specifically, but for the people who are refugees in that country as well. And secondly, we need to, as my fellows mentioned, about the role of international cooperation. I feel like the role of international cooperation is also required in this very particular aspect that we could harmonize in a way that we could strive for a better world. We need to stop wars. We need to make UNSC more implementable, as a very important point mentioned by Amna, because of the veto powers exist. We see this conflict. If the case of Ukraine conflict exists, Russia vetoes it. In the case of like let's say Gaza issue exists, well, USA vetoes it because of their own personal interests. We need to formulate a solution in a way that the veto power should not be the case in this very particular regard. We should like as individuals we cannot take initiatives, but international bodies and international governments, especially countries, should protest against these veto individuals so that whenever the P5 interest lies in a particular community, it just vetoes it and that solution does not become implementable because every solution is being implemented only when it passes to UNSC at larger scale. So agree them on a humanitarian cause. If we cannot take away the veto power, we should at least make these countries of awareness of the fact that this is about the concept of humanity, not about their political interests. And secondly, is as a community, as an international organizations, countries should put pressure upon these institutions, international institutions. So veto power should not exist on a status quo on a global scale that it impacts humanity. That the political interest of a country or an individual does not come as a hindrance towards providing accessible humanitarian aid to a particular age or not to accelerate wars specifically. That's it.
Okay,
Mikhail,
thank you,
I would
sir.
like to say something.
Yeah.
Like Mikhail said that democratic, we should um, bring forward the democratic states to do something for refugees, but democratic countries are doing the same as the non-democratic country. If Russia is doing this with Syrian people, similarly US is doing the same thing with the Palestinian people. They block their the critical resolutions. So I think the equation is the same. The democratic countries are also doing the same thing.
So just to highlight, I mentioned that in a democratic institution, people should be the one who should elect such governments that should work for the rights of refugees. And secondly, as far as your relevant question is mentioned that, oh, this country is doing this, country is doing. My relevant answer that I mentioned to that, and I will restate it again, is that the people, even if we see conflicts exist on a global scale, what we should do as a nations that we should firstly, as international countries, should put the pressure that P5 powers, veto powers should not exist. Because if the stake
Yeah.
of a P5, let's say largely P5 like USA, Russia, China, or any P5 are involved in the conflict. So if the veto power does not exist, then on the consensus of the majority committee, on the consensus of the members of UNGA, we can abolish that conflict and we can write binding solutions upon them. So the veto power should not exist. And if the veto power continue to restrain, what the international community should advocate is to put diplomatic pressure upon these P5 countries so that these P5 countries should not put their political interests above humanitarian interests specifically. Thank
Exactly.
you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, all of you. Thank you very much, Amna Asif. Thank you very much, Christian. Thank you very much, Arif, Imran, and thank you very much, Mikhail Mirza. I know that you all have a lot of inner plate. You have commitments to the other works as well, but you just take a moment for the Zoom session to highlighting some essential topic about the refugees crisis, especially focus on the Syrian refugees. I think that today's session is mainly a talk about how we can eradicate some facts which is actually in our society, which is mentioned by Amna. This is a psychological factor, and we all are promote only one factor. This is the unification, which is mentioned by the Mikhail and also by the Christian as well. It's totally rely on the one only person, what we want, what actually the peoples want. This is only a one thing what the nation wants, because by the people to the people, and the nations is almost made from each and every person. So thank you very much for all of you to joining us. I hope we shed the light on some important factors and shed the light on some important points in the today's session. Thank you very much for joining us on today's session.